Hi, I'm Beena Patel, a physician associate turned spiritual mentor, quantum healer, women's coach, and speaker. Welcome to The Voice That Sees. This podcast is an intimate dialogue on topics ranging from science and spirituality to alternative forms of healing, vulnerable storytelling, the esoteric ancient wisdom, the power of individual transformation, and how it impacts the collective evolution of humanity. Each episode, you will learn how to evolve by shifting your mindset and ways of being, express your vulnerability to heal and transform, and channel your emotions into self-expression, creating a greater impact in the world. Let's continue your journey together. Welcome back to another episode of The Voice That Sees. In today's episode, we'll be talking about life transitions and how it can bring up sometimes challenging emotions, whether these are events that kind of sneak up on us from out of nowhere, or even events that are quite beautiful and celebratory. They can still bring up things within us, whether it's feeling as though, do I deserve this? Can this really happen for me? So we're going to dive straight into how to navigate some of these moments in our lives with more grace and ease. And also understanding that with faith in this higher power, knowing that God has our back at all times, that yes, we do deserve good things happening for us. And that these highs and lows that we navigate throughout life, that's part of the journey. And we don't have to get attached to any of these moments, whether we are riding the highs or the lows. We can always come back to the state of inner peace and balance that comes from within. And so, as someone who has had quite a few shocking moments, especially in my 20s, I know that feeling of abrupt change, whether it's a breakup, loss of a job, some type of event that may have made you feel as though you are a failure. I know a lot of people have gone through things like divorces and even diagnoses and just question, where did they go wrong? What did they do for something like this to happen? And I've seen this both in patients as well as people in my community, where a lot of times that kind of negative self-talk can just keep them down in the dumps for longer than they need to. And while there is a process of going through your emotions, feeling it, and allowing yourself to befriend the grief, really sit with whatever loss you have experienced in your life, there's also space for allowing those emotions to move through you, be cleared, and then allow divinity to move through you so that you remember that no matter what is happening in the external, you still have this power to realign with peace and harmony from deep within. During life transitions, usually what people think is that many of these events have happened suddenly. And while sometimes things may have happened out of the blue, a lot of times when you look back, you can see that many of those shakeups were actually kind of like volcanoes. Things were happening and bubbling up to the surface, but it didn't erupt until that final moment, whether it was a breakthrough or a breakdown. And so when you really take a step back and look at it from a higher perspective, it's almost as though, has this thing been removed from you? Have you really lost something? Or did God shift something out of your life so that your life can be better, essentially? And the story that I would like to share is there was a point in my journey, which was my big spiritual awakening in 2015 going to 2016, where a lot of things were happening seemingly out of nowhere. A breakup with a long-term relationship, and then a few weeks later, moving out of my apartment in the middle of the night. I'm talking like midnight to 3 a.m. almost. And at that time, I remember thinking, whoa, this is a lot. This is so much that just happened in such a short span of time. However, in retrospect, I can also see that there were things that were coming up from time to time that I kept putting under the rug, not knowing how to deal with because the emotions that came up felt too challenging to hold. I was so nervous about experiencing them and really seeing them and meeting them and holding presence for what they were trying to show me. And so emotions really are indicators of our alignment. What is in balance? What feels to be in harmony? What can we allow more of into our lives versus what may be time to let go? And so one of the emotions that had come up for me a lot during that time was grief and also anger. And the more you try to stuff and repress these emotions, they hold a bigger charge and they get stronger because you're trying to resist them and it doesn't work. And so I would notice that in little moments, for instance, in that relationship, if there was something that came up that I didn't like, I wouldn't know how to express it. And when I did express it, there wasn't really space for it to be held. There was no intimacy in this relationship, at least not emotional intimacy. And so I kind of just try to glide by just thinking, well, maybe this is love. Maybe this is okay for now. But there's only so much you can go on for until your body starts to speak for you. And the way it showed up for me was these extreme outbursts of anger where it was like, enough is enough. And I could see in hindsight that those moments were really blinding for other people because it caught them off guard. And it was also really painful for me to witness as well because I knew there was a softer part of me. And I also know now that the anger is very sacred and it was trying to fuel me to change my life in a more positive way. And there are ways to move through such a charged emotion regularly, as in cleaning our anger, purifying our anger, which I know now. And I'll share more of those tools later in this episode. And so all of these things, this breakup, and then realizing that the roommates I was living with at that time, we just didn't get along. And it wasn't the right fit. And yet I was still trying to push at it. Doesn't mean I was right, they were wrong. It's just that it just was not an aligned match. And what happens when you keep trying to push at something that's not meant for you? It can erupt and it usually falls apart. So all of these things happening, and I'm noticing that there was a period where I was feeling sad and angry and I didn't know how to process them. And it led to this turnaround in my life in the course of almost a month where all these events were just spiraling. And it really sent a shock to my nervous system and also really tampered with my ability to believe in humanity at that time. I didn't know if I could trust people. And I was really questioning people's integrity at that point. Now, what happened over that weekend still gives me chills because it just goes to show the power of divinity, of God, especially through the art of surrender, which sometimes we don't do until we think that we're at His mercy. And it doesn't have to be like that. And that's what I want to convey today. I had been looking for a new place to live for close to 2 years at that time because I knew I wanted to move out of that apartment. It was not a good living situation. And I just couldn't find something within the range I was looking for. And I was a grad student, so I really wanted to save money where I could since I was spending all this money for my training. And while I couldn't find anything within those years that I was looking to move out, after these events happened within a month, the breakup, moving out of my apartment overnight, I literally found the most beautiful high-rise apartment that weekend. I found it on Craigslist, and at first I thought it was too good to be true because it had these beautiful, gorgeous views of the New York City skyline, the financial district, and the way the sun just hit all the windows and just created these panoramic views of sunlight all over this beautiful apartment. I just thought, there's no way. And for this price, I didn't believe it at first. But God's more powerful. So I reached out to this person and I end up looking at the place, visiting it, and feeling into the vibes. And it's so beautiful. And just as I'm about to sign the lease, the person who's subletting to me, because she actually had to break her lease, she was moving to Texas for work. The agent in the leasing office goes, actually, we need this much security deposit. And I looked at her thinking, where am I going to get that money from right now? I'm in grad school. And that was not part of the description in Craigslist. And she goes, actually, Bina, since I'm moving and my work is moving me so abruptly, I should be able to cover the cost of the deposit for you to move in. And my work will take care of it for me. And instantly it was taken care of. She just wrote the check in front of me. And I was moving into this beautiful new place within 2 weeks. And I think that was one of the first times for a long time that I just really felt the grace of God, of this higher power providing for me, even when I had no clue how it would happen. And so a lot of times when we are experiencing life transitions, we go into this empty space, also known as the void. And it can be uncomfortable because it comes with uncertainty. And even though a lot of life can be uncertain, those periods usually highlight uncertainty because something was eliminated. And now you're sitting there in that space and wondering, what's next? You're in that liminal space where you've just let go of who you once were, and you still don't know who you are yet to be. And that space can be painful. I want to acknowledge that. For anyone who may be experiencing this type of period in your life, I want to honor the bravery it takes to be in that space and to wake up every day not knowing what may happen next, and yet learning to find different ways to trust life again. And that is a powerful place for transformation to be birthed. Because in that space, it's like you're at the 0 point. You're in the womb. It's dark. You don't see the light yet. And the reality is that in that space of unmanifested potential, you can move that energy any which way. You can recreate yourself to be a different identity, the person that you want to be. And if you want to take it a level higher, which has been my recent evolution, is you can allow yourself to be, if this resonates, who God would have you be. And that takes a whole different level of courage and trust in faith in a higher power, in the unknown, in yourself, in the world. It's self-trust as well as trusting life. They go hand in hand. And so with emotions that can come up during these times of uncertainty, they're all valid. If you're feeling angst, if you feel sad during those moments where you just don't know what's happening, that's okay. And there are ways to meet yourself there. First, by creating safety in the nervous system, whether it's through breath work, meditation, yoga. Even taking a walk in nature can be really healing and comforting during those moments. Many people advocate for therapy, which I also do. And I also want to add, there are some moments in my life where I didn't necessarily need advice or someone to tell me these are the next steps to take. What I needed was silence and to just be. Not to be in it forever, but to be with those moments, to really take them in. Because even those moments are unlocking something within us. For instance, artists are not always creating. They actually have to lean back and receive inspiration that unlocks these new creative ideas within them that they can then go out and manifest into physical form. And so these transitional periods can also be gifts, even though they might not feel like a gift in the time being. Other ways to hold your emotions during these periods can also be about asking yourself the way you would a child, what do I feel right now? What's coming up for me? And what do I need? just by asking yourself what you feel and what you need, you can move through the day a little bit more easily, being more soft and tender with yourself versus trying to resolve something. These moments are not necessarily for resolution. They're actually part of your transformation. And part of that is being with them and learning what is coming up for your own self-discovery. Have you ever noticed that when you go through a really difficult time, whether it was a breakup that really came out of left field or being let go by a job that you thought was the forever job, something. Have you ever noticed that when you walk out the other side, you feel more anchored in yourself? You know a little bit more about yourself than you did before? And it's true that we learn a lot about ourselves in connection, in relationships, yes. And there are moments in our lives, such as transitional periods, where we are meant to walk through certain things alone. And so there can be a balance of both. There can be a balance of healthy, sacred solitude, and also learning where we need to be seen and heard in our own growth and evolution. And when we can listen to our intuition, we can discover what's right for us in any given moment. There may be times during those periods where you feel that you just need to be with yourself, and you will know it. So maybe you take a day to yourself and read a really nourishing book. Spend some time in meditation. Do what feels nourishing for your spirit. And there may be other times where you realize there's just no way you would be able to break through this unless you were able to be witnessed in it by another human. And that's also beautiful. And so during these transitional moments, our intuition is becoming heightened because we are learning a lot about ourselves at an accelerated pace. Ironically, even though it feels that nothing is happening behind the scenes, a lot is being unlocked on an energetic level within. This is why a lot of people also go to really spiritual places after they've undergone something that may have been challenging for them. And it's because during those moments, their souls are craving evolution and growth. And so even though they might not see tangible outcomes so quickly, energetically within themselves, their soul is being expanded and they can feel it because they start to perceive the world differently. You might have had these shifts as well, where suddenly something that bothered you before is no longer bothering you. Why is that? Because when you give yourself enough space to breathe through the experience, to be with it and to meet it, eventually you have a breakthrough, and that breakthrough sets you free. And it starts with the mind, it starts with your energy. Once that shift happens, you feel liberated. And that sense of liberation frees up space in your body because you're able to release those emotions tied to those experiences. And from that place, you start to see new things in your reality that match your new internal state, your upgraded inner programming. And so the void is often a powerful invitation to expand your life. I do honor that sometimes these things that happen may not be easy. And there may be a part of you that questions, why would I have called this in? This is not about self-blame or self-judgment. It's more so about seeing that our souls are here to expand. And in order to expand, there has to be room for growth to take place. There has to be energetic clutter that gets removed in order to experience freedom in your body. And so if you are experiencing a breakup, you may notice that during that final moment where you just know that there's no going back to the way things were before, there's accelerated purging. You're releasing so much of the grief and the hurt that you had experienced, and you're releasing so much of it in those moments. And as you do, you're creating space for that inner peace that's already within you. That's the beauty of it. It's actually already within you. It just needed space to come through and come alive. And so when you clear all those heavy, unprocessed emotions, that inner peace and harmony can come through. That deep, divine love can come through. Working in the cancer institutions, I noticed that a lot of my patients were not just experiencing cancer or their diagnosis. They were also undergoing divorces simultaneously, their own challenges with finances, their family, feeling that no one really cared about them, wishing that they had done things differently throughout their lives, traveling more, working less, spending more time with the people they love, going after their big dreams. I've had a lot of bedside conversations with people before they passed on. And I noticed that these life transitions that they were experiencing didn't just bring one area of their life to the forefront, it brought multiple areas of their lives to the forefront. Why was that the case? It's because whatever that manifestation was, whether it was the physical disease, failure in their business or venture, loss of a relationship, whatever it was, that was the final thing that kind of took them over the edge and then had them look back and open up all the other things that they were avoiding or couldn't see before until something shocked their system. And so do I believe that we need to be shocked in order to learn? No. And I would never wish that for anyone. I don't believe that we need to learn through suffering. However, I also don't believe we need to bypass the experience that unfolds as it is. And I believe that I don't have all the answers. I'm humble enough to admit that. And this is where I turn to God every single day and pray to Him and ask for Him to constantly bring miracles into my life and thank Him for what I've already been given and to see the miracle in each situation, knowing that there is some wisdom to be extracted from each event. And while it may not be known to me immediately, with patience and devotion, I can trust that there is a greater plan at hand. And my job is to let go, allow the transformation to occur, especially in these rapid phases that happen during the void, and trust that the rest is taken care of by Him. And so even with these incredible patients, I would notice that all these things would come to the forefront. And they had more time to look at everything with more scrutiny, with elevated perspectives. And usually the root cause of a lot of these issues, what I noticed was a lack of self-love. And I know this sounds really generic. What does that mean, a lack of self-love? I don't believe that people on this planet don't love themselves. Let me start with that. When I say a lack of self-love, I don't mean that someone woke up and didn't love themselves. I believe that we're on a constant journey of upgrading and expanding where our love is being called to deepen, meaning when you hold space for yourself, for instance, any woman who's single, when you're holding space for yourself as a single woman, you have a lot of love within you, and you get to share that love both for yourself and your community. And yet, I've heard this from every woman who has become a mother. When a woman becomes a mother, there's just a bursting of love that she feels for her children that she didn't even know was within her before. And to me, that is what expansion does, because she's now expanded her life by expanding her family. And a lot of times when we are up-leveling in our lives, we don't realize, but this also calls forth a deepening of our own self-love and the space that we can hold for all this beautiful love and light coming through us, as well as some of the other stuff that comes as well, where we need to uphold better boundaries. The capacity that you're upholding when you're a business of one will be much different when you are a major company with hundreds of people. It's just different. You have to tolerate more. You have to hold capacity for more things, whether they're going right or wrong. You just have to learn how to navigate and adapt. And so our human nature, even though we are wired for change, interestingly enough, the mind doesn't always like to change. It's usually resistant to change. And the body can also be resistant to heavy emotions, especially when we don't allow ourselves to process them and release them. And so what I noticed with these patients is that they saw different things coming up throughout their lives, but they didn't think it was a big deal. And then when the diagnosis happened, they found out about their disease, then all of a sudden they can see how they had played into unhealthy dynamics in other areas of their lives too. It was all amplified now because of this diagnosis. And so how do we deepen love in those moments? How do we clear out those places where we may have felt unworthy and inadequate? And learn to clean up these situations and then go forth to create the outcomes that we desire. If you had asked me this question earlier on in my own journey, what I would have said is inner work, challenging your limiting beliefs, writing all the things that you're releasing and calling in all the things that you're manifesting. And there is some truth to that. However, I've had such a deepening of my relationship with God my entire life, and especially these last few years, which I will absolutely be sharing more about in future episodes, along with my calling back to Jesus Christ. It's a very profound and beautiful story that I just feel so much peace in my body. And so after years of doing this deep work with clearing out limiting beliefs, understanding how to create new neural pathways, I love that work. And yet I've been in the space of asking God to shift me from deep within, asking for God to come through and rewire my internal programming, my mind, my body, my spirit, my soul, my energy. And I've been seeing so many beautiful miracles in my life. I bet they were already there. It's just that my perception has changed so drastically that I'm able to witness them in real time more often and feel more gratitude in my life. And so what I notice with a lot of these patients as well is that those who felt this calling to deepen their faith during these moments as well, they were able to navigate the transitions with a little bit more ease. I wouldn't say that all of them necessarily survived. However, even when it was time to let go, I'm talking about patients who were so reluctant to even have this conversation about death, now suddenly be able to find peace and live their last days with a twinkle in their eyes. And that was so gorgeous to witness and be present to. And this all ties back to life transitions because a lot of times when you're in it, you're really in it. And it can get murky. However, if you can invite in the grace, the light of God, those moments can be held simultaneously with moments of peace and serenity. And you are that powerful that you can do both. Humans are so powerful. We don't give ourselves enough credit sometimes. We can hold multiple emotions at the same time. By inviting in this light, this grace of God, you can dissolve those emotions and purify those emotions. Even anger or resentment can be purified. And what this means is allowing the Holy Spirit to come through and do it for you. So you're not moving through life thinking that you have to clear everything, that you have to heal everything, when in the eyes of God, you are already whole, even though life itself may feel as though it's fragmented. And it's okay to feel all the things you feel. You are having your human experience. And yet I found personally that when I tune into my divinity, that actually helps me embrace my humanity too. I feel that's a life hack. Learning to come to God regularly in my days through prayer, through meditation, through chanting, even writing to Him, and allowing this peace to wash over my nervous system every single day. That's what it feels like. It's like an energetic shower that just cleanses me and helps me realize that it is also safe for me to experience loads of joy and peace and harmony and love. And that whatever you may be experiencing in your life at this time is actually helping you become a stronger, more empowered individual. And I guarantee you that you may not see it in the moment, but whatever you're experiencing is something that you're being called to rise to so that you can turn around and help other people who are experiencing something similar to you. From your transformation, from the lens of someone who has overcome whatever challenge or obstacle has come on your path, you now have the codes to help another human being rise on his or her path as well. And that's called purpose. And you get to channel whatever you're experiencing. For instance, anger. It can be such a charged emotion. And I learned that in those moments that I feel so strongly, especially when I'm feeling anger, it's usually because something really needs to change. And it starts with me. And I've probably crossed my own boundary. So what can I do to clean up the situation? It's not always pretty. I admit that. And I honor my humanity, and I learn to clean up the situation afterwards. And yet, when I can hold space for it, take aligned action, channel it into passion, some of my best creations have been birthed. In fact, I would go so far as to say that this podcast has been birthed because of what I experienced in my 20s and how I want to speak to all the things I experienced so I can help other people elevate their lives and also feel seen and heard from me speaking my truth alone. That takes a certain level of power and courage. And for someone who didn't know how to create intimacy before and has been called on this path of being vulnerable, which hasn't really been modeled to many of us in society. We've been told to stuff our emotions, to not show our emotions, especially at work. This takes bravery. And I'm not the only one who has this. Everyone has it within them to be vulnerable and to speak their truth and use their voice. So again, there are ways to find grace in these life transitions. Above all, those moments are calling forth for you to love and accept yourself exactly as you are. Rather than looking for what needs to be fixed, usually those moments are calling forth a deeper surrender. To accept what is, knowing that when you accept it, you release the charge around the situation. And usually that's when miracles can flood in. Because you're saying yes to life, trusting in this higher plan, even when you don't know what it is, at least not in that moment. Allowing these internal shifts to happen on a deep cellular level. And then knowing that just by your own internal shifts, integration and embodiment, which happens over time when you are really going through the transformation, like really in the vortex, completely shifting your life, and you're a brand new person. And when I say brand new person, I mean you are more authentically yourself. You are more whole. You remember who you truly are. A powerful co-creator of your existence on this planet. From that place, people feel instantly elevated in your presence. Because yes, you can talk the talk. That's important. Speaking our truth, being in integrity, which is an ongoing process, and walking the walk. Actually being who you preach, who you say you are. And you don't even have to speak to it. People can just feel it. I also believe that was the path of Jesus Christ. Taking people back to the heart and people feeling instantly healed just by being around his aura. And so I'll end today's episode by saying a prayer for anyone who may be experiencing any life transition or void in your life. May God be with you in this moment and help you uncover your own inner strength and resilience and inner peace that's already here and already available to you. May you feel the love that's within you, that's surrounding you, that's present in your everyday life. May you be awakened to love in every single moment. May you find peace in your journey knowing that something so much more beautiful is coming alive for you. Let it be easy. Let it be beautiful. And let God really take care of it. May you find trust in your life, within yourself, other people, in God, in a higher power, knowing that faith can move mountains. Because faith helps you understand that you are the mountain. You are that powerful. You are that strong. You are that loving force here to do big, beautiful things in the world. May you know this. May you embody this. May you be this now with ease, grace, peace, and flow. I send you so many blessings on your journey. Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Voice That Sees. God bless. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Voice That Sees. Please be sure to check out more episodes every other Tuesday on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you listen to your podcast. For additional content, you can follow me on Instagram at The Yoga Movement and YouTube at The Yoga Movement NYC. You can also check out my coaching programs and unique offers on my website at theyogamovementnyc.com to help support your individual and personal transformation. Until next time, be you and be well.